Good morning and welcome to a very special Veterans Day edition of Fantasy Football Live. Thank you to those who serve and have served in the armed forces. We truly appreciate your service. I'm Amanda Borges, and joining me here on set we have Andy Behrens, Brad Evans, and Tank Williams. Good morning, everyone.
Hola!
Well, good morning.
How's it going?
Happy Jeff Driscoll Day.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk plenty about
The
that.
Bears may win a game.
Keep
We won't
Jeff
get
Driscoll
into
Day
that.
in your heart every day of the year, Brad.
Seriously, yeah, it's huge.
It is big. Well, as always, we also have Liz Loza and Matt Harmon joining us in our Los Angeles studio to handle everything social for us. Good morning, guys. What's going on today?
Good morning. Well, I was just telling Liz that LaShawn McCoy is a healthy scratch today, so that's an exciting change in the Chiefs' backfield. It looks like for all of you people that drafted Damian Williams in one of the first few rounds of fantasy, you're about to be right in the second half of the season, even though you were wrong in the first half of the season.
I don't want to trigger you, Matt, but what are your thoughts on Darwin Thompson?
Oh, my God. All right. I can't. Stop.
Back to you, Amanda.
I'm so sorry, Matt. Last but not least, we have our very own DJ Bebop Rocksteady. Of course, he is spinning his original tracks throughout the entire show. Good morning to you, DJ.
Good morning. I'm a little sad because I have to wait 24 hours to watch the Niners play.
Oh.
But anyway,
That sounds sad.
we out here.
Thank you, Bebop. All right, on a more serious note, let's get a quick look at who's in and who's out today. There's a lot going on. First, the big surprise, Matt Stafford's streak of 136 straight starts will end today due to fractured bones in his back. Patrick Mahomes will return after missing the last 2 games. Running back Le'Veon Bell will play through a knee and ankle issue, and his former teammate James Conner is out for the second straight week. Steelers wideout Juju Smith-Schuster is questionable with a foot injury, and in the night game, Adam Thielen is out again. On the other sideline, Amari Cooper is questionable, but he is expected to play. And finally, Monday night, George Kittle is doubtful for the 49ers after knee and ankle injuries last week. Very sad.
I don't even want to play out the week without Kittle. What is the point?
What's the point?
Yeah, Iowa coming off a disappointing loss against Wisconsin.
Why do you have to go there? I don't even recognize the Big Ten.
Hey, wait, Illinois. That's all I gotta say. Illinois.
Very sad. Okay, the big news today, guys. Obviously, Matthew Stafford is out. What does that mean? This has huge implications.
Yes, it does. The ripple effects are massive here, particularly for a couple of fantasy stars in Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. Look, this is bye-week hell. We got 6 teams on a 1-week siesta. The cupboard is bare. There are limited options for people. So, Barons, impromptu game of head-to-head. You tell me, who would you rather play, Kenny Golladay or Zach Pascal drawing Miami?
Yeah, we've already taken this question several times this morning. For me, this is Zach Pascal. He's got 3 touchdowns in his last 3 games. I don't want to mess with the Lions this week with the severe downgrade at quarterback.
All right, let me give you one more. What about Kenny Golladay or Michael Gallup drawing Minnesota?
Oh, it's Gallup. Yeah, it's absolutely Gallup.
Okay.
We're waiting for Driscoll to have his Dan Orlovsky moment. Just run out of bounds. Safety.
What about Marvin Jones then? Would you play Christian Kirk ahead of him?
Yeah.
Is that a dumb question? What about
Yeah,
A.J. Brown?
I was doing that anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, see, and I'm just trying to give people a perspective here of what to anticipate. So guys like Christian Kirk, who hasn't found the end zone this year. A.J. Brown, who's been a roller coaster ride, though it is...
Name any other receiver that's not a Lion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kenny Golladay, more or less, probably a high-end wide receiver 3. Marvin Jones, probably more of a flex option in 12-team leagues as a result. And the other thing you got to remember is this, too. The Bears defense, as bad as they've been in terms of forcing turnovers, they have gotten after the quarterback. You got to view them as a top 5 unit right now. Because Detroit can't run the damn ball, and that is the weakness of Chicago.
This is going to be an ugly, slow-paced game, too.
So what does that mean?
David Montgomery!
Sorry, Montgomery, you jackals! Yes!
Don't worry, everyone. We'll get even more of that later because
Yes.
we have a quick slant on that game. Remember, this show is all about you. Get your roster questions answered by getting our attention on social media. You can use Twitter. We're at Yahoo Fantasy, or you can call into the show. The number is 877-FFL-GURU. I promise we will get to as many questions as we can throughout the show. All right, let's kick things off this morning with Off Their Game. This is where our experts discuss players who are more than 50% owned in Yahoo leagues, but we don't think they'll be so hot today. So, guys, who are we looking at today? Tim?
Oh, well, I think I'm up first. And actually, I was off my game because I just wrote this script up about 5 seconds ago, but it doesn't really matter because it's all going to ring true. Devontae Freeman. He's going up against the New Orleans Saints, and I would say that Devontae's been off his game probably the past couple of weeks. He threw a punch at Aaron Donald, which is dumb already, and got thrown out the game. Then he got smacked up by the Seattle Seahawks in the home game. They're their bye week, so you think they may have their stuff together, but now he has to face the #1 ranked defense against fantasy running backs in the New Orleans Saints. So if you're expecting something from Devontae Freeman, this week ain't gonna be it. Bench him.
Andy?
Yeah, for me, this is going to be Dak Prescott. Obviously, he's been great so far on the year. He's a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and he has been crushing the friendly matchups. He's got a rough one this week against Minnesota. Minnesota's defense on the year has allowed only 6.9 yards per pass attempt, 225 passing yards per week. Don't like him here. And they also haven't given up anything on the ground to opposing quarterbacks, no rushing touchdowns to opposing QBs yet. I think this is a pretty low yield week for Dak. I don't like him for more than, say, 220, 1 touchdown, maybe 30 yards on the ground.
Brad?
Anybody else get the feeling that Todd Gurley is fading to black? Well, he is. If you just look at the snap share over the last 3 games, I know the Rams had the bye week. Maybe he's been recharged in some capacity, but he's got a damn arthritic knee.
Wait, what does he have?
An arthritic knee.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. And the last 3 games on the field for Gurley, the snap counts have gone from 93.1% to 60.5 to 51.6. The yak per attempt has dropped off precipitously. And then you look at the matchup. You know, the Steelers were soft early in the season, but the steel curtain is back and in full force right now. RB1s the last 5 games average just 49.1 rush yards per contest on the season. The Steel Tanners giving up just 3.8 yards per carry. So Gurley is a guy I have firmly outside my top 24. I would indeed play, say, Damian Williams ahead of him.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Fantasy owners are always looking for the most dependable option to help them week to week. So it's time to decide which flex options are made of reliability, presented by USAA, who help their members achieve a better tomorrow. Now, these players are made to help you this week, so we'll send it down to Liz and Matt, who are joined by former Army Green Beret and NFL long snapper Nate Boyer to help make some flex decisions. Guys?
Reliability, gentlemen, that is what we are looking for in Week 10. And I know with 6 teams on a bye, it's obviously hard to find a reliable player, but I think Jamal Williams does fit the bill. Sure, he's the Packers' #2 running back, but fun fact, when both Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams were healthy, their snap share is pretty close to 50-50, with Aaron Jones on the field for 55% of the team snaps and Jamal Williams on the field for surprising 45% of the team snaps. I think you're going to see Jamal Williams get at least 10 touches per game. How that's divvied out remains to be seen, but he's going to continue to be involved. We know Matt LaFleur loves a shared backfield, and he has scored 5 touchdowns over his past 4 weeks facing the Carolina Panthers, who are giving up an average of 2 scores per week to the running back position. I think he is as solid of a flex at the running back position as you can get.
That was a lot of analytics. This pick has nothing to do with
Welcome
analytics.
to it, Nate.
Yes, yes. This is a purely emotional pick. With Veterans Day upon us, I'm going to take Larry Fitzgerald. Arizona Cardinals. You know, Pat Tillman passed away 15 years ago, and that was also Larry's first year in the league. He had a lot of targets early in the season, and those have definitely dropped off. Hasn't had a big week, but I think he's due. That Tampa Bay secondary is vulnerable. Obviously, Christian Kirk being the #1 target right now, but like I think he's going to score, and it's going to be a big week, and it's all for Pat Tillman and Veterans Day, baby.
I love that. I'm going to go back to that Green Bay Packers-Panthers game. And I'm not going to talk about my favorite Carolina Panthers wide receiver. I'm going to talk about the other guy, DJ Moore, who has target totals of 8, 10, 9, and 10 over the last 4 games. He's been getting steady volume, and we know this Packers secondary has been giving it up to wide receivers pretty much all season. I expect this game to be pretty high scoring. I think DJ Moore can push 90 yards and score a touchdown in this game. So we've made our player picks here, but Nate, you and I actually got to do something pretty cool this week for a good cause leading up to Veterans Day. We spent a little time not just here on the ground, but up in the air together. Let's take a look. Matt Harmon here with Nate Boyer, former NFL player, Army veteran. Nate, please tell me, why the hell am I out here at 8 in the morning in front of a plane on a runway?
Well, you're going to jump out of that plane
from the sky. We're at Go Jump in Oceanside, and this is for Operation Jump 22. The 22 is referring to the 22 veterans a day that are killed by suicide. And there's a lot of organizations out there doing what they can to sort of combat that. And they've been generous enough to, through this jump, make pretty substantial contributions to MVP, Emerging Vets and Players, which is a charity that I co-founded.
You've got hundreds of jumps, and
Yeah.
you know, you've jumped by yourself. I'm not really a thrill seeker. This is nothing I would have ever done on my own. One piece of advice to kind of keep my nerves down.
The nerves leave with you when you leave the aircraft.
Well, I'll tell you what, I feel inspired already. Let's go do the damn thing.
Let's go
huh?
do
Let's
the damn thing. All right.
In college, I jumped off of a porch once, but that's about the only height I've ever done. We can't do this within 24 hours of each other, so like I can't jump, go back down, and then jump again.
Was that what it says?
Yeah.
Did you actually read all the fine print?
Of course.
Smart.
Could you put your address so that they can send your remains there?
They send over a couple guys to knock on the door, tell your mom. It's kind of like,
I appreciate it. Why do you assume I still live with my mom?
well, come on. We know you live with your mom.
I had a whole grain bagel this morning.
Whole grain. That's what you chose for your last meal?
Pretty sad.
Thumbs in your harness. You get to the door, your chin up, ready, set, and on go. You're just going to want to present your pelvis, your legs back, and your chin up.
Legs back, chin up. Yep. Present the pelvis.
Arch hard. Yeah. Arch hard.
It's like I'm peacocking.
Yeah. When we tap your arms, you can put your arms out and just chill. For landing, just get your knees up in front of you as high as you can like this. Want your glasses?
Nope.
They put goggles on us or something? Oh yeah, I'm nervous right now. I'm hiding it. I'm masking it well.
I hope I don't say anything embarrassing while I'm falling.
What's the worst, most embarrassing thing you could say?
Probably cry for my mother or something. Why do you assume I still live with my mom?
Well, we know you live with your mom. You should do it first. Go first, man.
Well, I just want you to push me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna push. I'm gonna kick you. Oh, here it comes.
There we go. Yeah, baby.
Totally not ready.
All right.
Yeah.
Can't turn back now.
You got this, brother.
See you down there.
I haven't jumped in 10 years. My best friend, Brad Keys, passed away in a free fall jump. Green Beret, hell of a man, my hero. So it's cool to get up here. It's cool to get close to you, Brad. And this is all for the vets, man, for the 22 a day that are losing the battle. We got to keep fighting, don't quit. And yeah, get everybody home and keep them home once they're back.
Easy. See? Well, that was amazing.
Brother,
We did it.
how was it, man?
Awesome.
It's cool though. Thank
Put
you for
some
doing
panic
this,
in.
man. This is
Yeah.
it's huge for MVP, for Operation Jump 22. Like,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, it
I mean,
means a lot.
this was awesome. Glad we did it for a good reason.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
always cool when you can do something like this
Yeah.
and it has a cause behind it. So go to operationjump22.org or vetsandplayers.org to support us. Thank you, guys. Slow clap.
Wow.
Slow clap.
No kidding.
Matt.
Matt Harmon survived. How were your pants when you landed?
A little tight. They ride up, you know, from all the pulling with the parachute and everything like that. But it was awesome. Like I don't think that's something that I ever would have done on my own. But it was really cool to do it with Nate. He was awesome about it. And I know when I talked to him when we landed, I said, you know, it's funny. Like no one really asked me if this was something. It was like, hey, Harmon, we need someone to jump out of a plane for the show. Why don't you go jump out of a plane? And Nate, I believe, said that's what we call in the Marines or the Army voluntold. So here we are. I made it. I would do it again, to be honest with you.
I can't believe none of you in Sunnyvale have commented about the fact that you saw Harmon's hair move.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
We did during. We noticed. We definitely
First
noticed.
time ever.
We're proud of you, Matt. Nice work.
Hey, the part still stayed, though. The part still stayed.
That's all that matters. Well, that was all brought to you by USAA, proud supporter of the military community. What you're made of, we're made for. Time now for our first quick slant of the day. Now, this one won't be played until Monday, but it's the biggest game of Week 10. The last undefeated team in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers, host the division rival, Seattle. We'll put 90 seconds on the clock. Brad will likely use all of that to talk about Josh Gordon.
No, actually, I will not. I'm not going to answer questions about Josh Gordon, but he's going to be on a limited snap count. He's new to the system. It's going to take some time, at the cost of DK Metcalf's fantasy value. But Tank, I'm going to start with you first. Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah, baby. Jimmy Garoppolo. What do you make of him this week? Do you view him as a firm QB1 in a 12-team setting, knowing that Seattle has had its issues defending the pass?
Yeah, Seattle's had their issues defending the pass, and I think what I learned most about Jimmy G in that Thursday night game is that San Francisco is going to be stubborn. They're going to run the ball every game when they can. But if they can't, then Jimmy G can put the team on his back. He can spread it around. He can get the ball in the end zone. And that's what he's going to have to do against Russell on Monday Night Football. So I expect this one to be a shootout, and I think Jimmy G is going to hold his own.
Yeah, I think 260 to 280 yards, multiple touchdowns, distinct possibility against Seattle.
The thing is, you can do anything you want to against Seattle. They also give up 4.7 yards per carry, so that traditional San Francisco game plan.
But the one thing we have to mention is your boy not having Kittle, where everyone can focus their attention on.
About it.
Man,
why are you going to twist that name?
Yeah, I mean, that could dampen that.
And Seattle has been pretty good against the run. They're giving up 4.1 yards per carry at the running back position, but this San Francisco 49ers offense just demoralizes people in the trenches. They are so dominant. They open up so many great holes within this one cut-and-go scheme that Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida, they can set up the pass for success in this game.
But we can't neglect the Seattle side. I mean, so just real quickly, I mean, we know Chris Carson's been a volume monster, beast, and all that stuff. Lockett going against one of the better defenses in the league. Like, what do you do on that side of the ball?
Well, I think Lockett could be in for a down week, but Chris Carson is going to go off. This is going to be 100 combined yards. It's going to be a touchdown for him.
Did Drake show you the path last week? Drake.
Well, we've seen it. I mean, San Francisco's all of a sudden giving up 4.6 yards per carry to running back.
Where do you have Russell Wilson in your ranks this week? I think he's one of the most difficult.
I got him at QB9.
That's about right. Yep.
All right, thank you guys. It's time for us to get social, as I said earlier. Liz and Matt handle all of that for us, so we'll send it over to them. But before we get to those, Matt, what was your breakfast choice this morning? I know you weren't jumping from a plane, so did you change it up at all?
I'm just back to straight up green juice now at this point, and green juice and coffee. So no whole grains.
Great sitting next to him, guys.
Yeah.
In this small.
Don't you feel so lucky to be here, Liz?
Green juice and coffee. Make anything percolate for 90 minutes. Do you want to talk social?
Let's hurry up and answer some questions so I can run out of here and take care of some business.
Anybody asking questions in the chat using a poop emoji, you will be sent to the front of the line.
You're guaranteed.
Matt, what are the tweets?
First one we have up is from Kristen, and she asked, would you start Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson today? Obviously, Mahomes back from injury. Jackson playing the worst run defense in the NFL. I'm going to go Mahomes here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm going Lamar Jackson. Are you kidding? This Tennessee matchup is interesting because Jarrell Casey is banged up. LaShawn McCoy is out. I think this is going to be a run-heavy operation, despite the fact that the Titans are missing Malcolm Butler, their number one DB, and you would imagine you'd want to pass on him. But I think because Casey's banged up, Reed is going to lean on the run and maybe prevent Mahomes from retweaking that ankle. And of course, the rushing floor. Matt, this is your moment. The rushing floor with Lamar Jackson is so available against the Bengals.
I would say I'm a skeptic. I don't have too much trust in a lot of things, but if there's one thing I believe in, it's always play Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, wow.
And that's it. Now, next one comes in from Rebecca Chandler. She says, good morning. Hey, good morning to you,
Thank
too.
you, Rebecca.
Full PPR.
Doesn't matter.
I love this. Full
Doesn't
PPR. Who's the more likely to catch a pass today? Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson? In this situation, though, I am going to go with Russell Wilson.
Yep.
It should be a great game on Monday night. I know the Seahawks are facing San Francisco 49ers, best defense in the league, maybe against the pass, but still, Wilson's too hot right now. He's the MVP of the league. You play him and you don't think about it.
This time I agree wholeheartedly. Great analysis as well.
Beautiful. Well, I would have been better if I could have said the team name right. All right, now our last one we're going to hit from the chat room. And Liz, we have someone very much on theme here because they not only use the poop emoji as you requested, they also use several American flags. Flex play, Christian Kirk slotted in, or do you start DK Metcalf or Robert Woods over him?
Oh, well, I am going to lean towards Christian Kirk for reasons that we talked about on the Yahoo Fantasy podcast, and also facing that Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary, which is obviously vulnerable. Nate talked about it in our segment, but if you look at Larry Fitzgerald's numbers, his targets have dwindled as the season has gone on. Kirk is back to being the #1 wide receiver in that receiving core, so I like his ability in this week.
I agree with you as well that Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary is terrible. They blitz so much that they invite players to pass on them. I think Kirk has a pretty big game. I think he has his first real big game of the season, honestly, or at least since like September. So I'm agreeing with you there. I think you go there. And for the rest of you people out there, hit us with your questions in the chat. Use those poop emojis. Use whatever emoji makes your heart feel whole, and we will get to you later.
Wow, thank you very much, guys. All right, we've got to take our first break, but when we return, we'll go over or under on Jared Goff. Stay tuned. Is it the robot move? To Fantasy Football Live. Court is back in session with our favorite judge. Now, last week he really laid down the law. So, Mr. Behrens, are you feeling lenient this morning? Or no?
I never come into this studio feeling lenient. No, I am not feeling lenient. We got a fun question from Josh, a commissioner. He says, I'm commissioning a fam league. I never vetoed a trade before. My cousin is in 10th place. Her husband is vying for the playoffs. She's trying to give him Zeke for Sony Michel.
Oh.
Everything in my bones is telling me to veto the hell out of this. It's a family league. That's unbelievable, and we have collusions. Thoughts, he asks. Yeah, I have thoughts. Let's bring up the standings in this league. So we're talking about Oakland down here and John's football IQ. So this couple is a combined, 6 and 12. Not a great season for the happy couple. First of all, before we even get to whether this should be vetoed, I want to congratulate this pair for having an extraordinarily strong relationship because I'm pretty sure that given the same circumstances, my wife would not just hand Zeke Elliott over to me. That's amazing. Obviously, this is a collusive trade, right? And it's a family league. What kind of message are we sending to the young cousins in this thing? That's terrible. We can't stand for this. Obviously, the trade has to be vetoed. This sort of deal undermines competitive balance in the league. It's terrible for obvious reasons. Zeke, right now, the number 8 running back in fantasy. Sony Michel down at 25. He did all of his scoring basically in a single week. Only had 5 touches in his last game. The schedule ahead, not look. Whatever. You know that Sony Michel for Zeke Elliott is not a fair trade. But here is what I am ordering beyond the vetoing of this thing. These two are going to have to co-manage a team next year. They seem like they can agree on lineup decisions a little bit. And again, you guys are only 6-12 on the season. Maybe pool your resources, pool the brain power. Try to get up to, I don't know, 5th place in this thing. Try to stay out of the consolation bracket. So, one team for the happy couple next year.
Gotta love family drama. That's always fun.
Thanksgiving is going to be really interesting.
Oh, it's going to be tense.
Yeah.
Please report back to us. Let us know how it goes. Also, remember, if a last-second play or a missed kick costs you your matchup this week, tell us about it. Send a video to @Yahoo Fantasy using the hashtag FFL Bad Beats, and Andy will try to sympathize with you, but probably not.
I will not.
Never. All right, let's get to some of your social questions, shall we? Liz and Matt, what you got for us?
Well, the people have been responding with the poop emojis, and we thank you. We're going to jump into the chat right now, and we've got ourselves a must-win here with a quarterback decision. They've got to start Brian Hoyer, Ryan Tannehill, or Daniel Jones. Let's help Nikki out here.
So you've got Ryan Tannehill.
Ryan Hoyer versus Dolphins.
Okay, that's just. I feel like that's going to be a Marlon Mack game, like a heavy Marlon Mack game. We do like Zach Pascal. I think I'm going to lean with Daniel Jones, not going very far, playing the Jets. I'm gonna go with that. Also, Corey Davis is out for the Titans. Not that he's done anything, so maybe that's a boost to AJ Brown. But I don't know, Matt. I'm gonna go Daniel Jones. Do it, Gettleman. What are you thinking?
I'm going Ryan Tannehill. It should be a pretty high-ish scoring game with the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes back. Ryan Tannehill has been pretty steady for fantasy, and last week we saw him get running again, which helps a lot. So
Chris Jones is back, and he looked pretty good last week, actually creating a pass rush for the Chiefs.
I hear you, but again, going with the floor, if this is a must-win situation, I think Tannehill's the safest guy of the bunch. Jones, we know, can throw the entire game away.
That's true. That is true. Matt is right. And you know what? If you want the ceiling, which is not very high,
you go with nice guy Jay Cutler or whatever. He is number 2 in the league with WTF turnovers, only to Jameis Winston, that being Daniel Jones. That's an official metric from Harmon Corp over here. All right, let's move on. Carl needs some help, and just a litany of poop emojis here. Amari Cooper, John Brown, or Golden Tate. They can only play one. Now, Amari Cooper did get a little MRI on his knee this week, but are we worried about that, and what should be a fun game on Sunday night enough to play like Golden Tate or John Brown?
I think talent is the tiebreaker for me here, so I'm going to continue to lead towards Amari Cooper. I understand the argument for Golden Tate with Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard both out, but the matchup against Brian Poole is more difficult than you might actually believe. So I think that Amari Cooper, he plays hurt all the time. That's kind of his MO, so I'm going to lean towards him in this matchup at home.
Yeah, he loves to play hurt, which interesting choice. You know, I wouldn't do it personally, but I jumped out of a plane, so what do I know? I'm going to agree with you though. You go Amari Cooper in this situation, even though I do like Golden Tate a little bit more than I think you do this week, just for volume alone and that floor. But you know, there we go. Now moving along, we'll take one more here from Robert King. Emmanuel Sanders, Allen Robinson, or Ronald Jones. Got to start 2 of them. So which one are we benching here? I mean, your boy Ronald Jones. Liz, is this not the time? Is this not the moment?
He has been such a toxic lover. I just don't know if I can continue this push-pull relationship with Rojo, but I do think that I do think when you're talking about touchdown upside, I mean, he kicked it off for the Bucs last week. Let's say he does it again. You have to sit, I think, one of these wide receivers. Matt, which of these receivers are you sitting if you agree that Rojo is a start?
I do agree that Ronald Jones is the start here, and God forgive me, I think you have to bench Allen Robinson, playing with the league's biggest dust ball at quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky. You got to bench Allen Robinson and play Emmanuel Sanders, who's red hot right now for my San Francisco 49ers. I think that's the pick of the 2 wide receivers here. Although, to be fair, just bench Ronald Jones. Who cares? What are you looking forward to his 15 for 70? Give me a break.
You're not going to play Allen Robinson. This is a David Montgomery game.
Oh, I must.
Okay.
Those exist?
It's going to now, $20 in Yahoo DFS. Brad, you know what I'm talking about. Can you please take it if Amanda's not?
I'm having a lot of fun just seeing what you guys come up with next. And Brad's getting really excited, so this is fun for me.
Yeah, I'm getting.
Thank you very much,
that's
guys.
dangerous.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Well, from our crew in LA to one of their quarterbacks, Jared Goff and his Rams are coming off their bye, and he's been on a roll lately, tallying 640 passing yards and 5 total touchdowns over the past 2 games. Now today he's facing a Steelers resurging defense, so can Goff go over at least 1.5 touchdowns today? Brad, we'll start with you.
That is a firm negative. I'm taking the under on Jared Goff here. This is a terrible setup for him. I understand he's coming off the bye, but he got the cross-country trip to Pittsburgh. That improved, revamped defense has done wonders. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, 7.2 in terms of yards per attempt allowed so far this season. They've also accumulated 29 sacks, operating behind a sieve of an offensive line that's near the dungeon in terms of pass blocking efficiency. I think Jared Goff, who's been wildly inaccurate for much of the season and struggling within this scheme, struggles. So it's only 1 touchdown in my book.
Tank.
I'm going over. Now that Brad is done with his fake news, let's go ahead and speak some facts. Brian Hoyer threw 3 tubs against the Steelers last week. The past 2 weeks before that, Phillip Rivers and Ryan Fitzpatrick threw for 2 tubs apiece. Now, we know what happens when my man Sean McVay gets in somebody's ear. He becomes one of the youngest coaches in NFL history. He gets himself a fine model that he gets married to, and he coaches my man Jared Goff to the Super Bowl. So you think coming off a bye week where they just waxed the Bengals in London and he gets in his ear for like 2 weeks, he won't be able to come and smack the Steelers? Man, is you crazy? Over.
Matt.
Yeah, Tank is completely right. And let's talk about how they waxed the Bengals in London. It was all because of Cooper Kupp.
Well.
And what have the Steelers been terrible at covering all year? Slot receivers. They love to throw like linebackers on these guys. You think you're going to throw a linebacker on Cooper Kupp and he's not going to find the end zone at least once? And then Goff can find someone else for the second one. I'm going over here as well.
Mm-hmm. We win.
Nice work, everyone. We'll stay in Los Angeles with Matt and Liz for our next quick slant that features Matt's former favorite team, the Panthers, against the Packers at Lambeau today. We'll drop 90 seconds on the clock. Guys, is Kyle Allen ready for a cold game in Green Bay?
That's a great question, and really, that's the thing that I'm most curious about in this game is what happened to the Green Bay Packers defense. Like, remember in September when this looked like a transformed unit that we would fear every single week because of the pressure that they brought? Well, they're like bottom 5 in terms of yards per play allowed now. They have been just getting creamed, obviously, by running games, so Christian McCaffrey, hello, but also now when they don't get home for sacks, they give up a ton of space in the passing game.
They're also not healthy. Kevin King was on a snap count last week. He was a full participant by the end of this past week in practice, but is he going to be 100% for this game? I don't know. What about Jair Alexander? He was a late addition to the injury report on Friday, and so he'll be less than 100%. Safety Adrian Amos,
Mm-hmm.
he's a game-time decision for this game. I don't even know if he's playing. He may be inactive as far as we know.
And they haven't quite figured out what they want to do with him either. They've used him as like a box linebacker sometimes, then a deep safety, and it just hasn't gelled all the way.
On the other side of things, though, I mean, I think what's interesting about this matchup is these are two defenses that have had troubles defending the run, and two offenses that want to defend the run, but also have secondaries that are banged up because, in addition to the Packers DBs that I talked about, James Bradbury is iffy to play today too, and if he does go, he's definitely not 100%.
Yeah, and those Packers wide receivers, obviously the biggest question that people will have with them is, hey, is this the week that Davante Adams finds the end zone?
It's Davante Adams and then everybody else. If you look at the target distribution after Davante Adams returned last week, it was Lazard had 4 targets. Everybody else had 2 targets, even though MVS had the highest snap count of the secondary wide receivers. So I'm only putting my money on the running game. We talked about Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, and then Devontae Adams. After that, you're throwing darts. And as far as Carolina is concerned, Matt's reliability pick of DJ Moore has the highest floor. Greg Olsen, if you have to a tight end, you have to. But also, I think Curtis Samuel remains the highest ceiling, highest upside player of this receiving corps.
Yeah, I would break ties in favor of playing both of those Carolina wide receivers. I like this game a lot for fantasy with the questionable defenses on both sides of the ball.
Thank you, guys. It is time now for Shootout or Shut Down. This is where our guys dissect a couple matchups based on the high and low Vegas point totals. So we'll start with Arizona and the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I'm not going to steal any thunder from us later on in regards to the distribution of touches between Kenyon Drake and David Johnson, but I'm going to focus more on Ronald Jones. He seems to be a hot topic right now on this show. Barons, I'm buying all in on Rojo. After Bruce Arians, it's the BA Bowl, that's why I'm wearing the cap, gave him a ringing endorsement saying he's earned the right to start. Where do you stand in this great debate on Ronald Jones?
Oh, I think he's a top 20 running back this week. He might be a top 15 running back this week. I believe Arians fully on this one. He's looked great this year. As bad as he was last season, that's how good he's been this year. Ball security, no longer an issue. Catching the football, no longer an issue. Really decisive runner, and he gets a great matchup against a defense that's allowing about 4.5 yards per carry.
And a defense that's also allowed 104.7 rush yards per game of the running back position since week 7. Tank?
Yes.
Is this the week we get an O.J. Howard sighting?
I mean, it's a week that we should get one. I mean, every tight end goes off against the Arizona Cardinals, but they don't like to target him. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, it's a dart throw, but I mean, if you're going to play him any week, this is the week to play him.
Do you buy into anything that Bruce Arians was saying in regards to why Howard has had limited usage? He's saying, well, it's been about game flow, and you know he's got to earn the opportunities. He's just not getting open. I mean, is it just coach speak, or is there some substance to that?
I mean, well, if you make it this far through the season and you really haven't seen a game where he's just highly targeted, then I just think that is not going to happen. So I'd rather place my bets on Godwin, Evans. We know they're going to throw the ball to them regardless of who's covering them.
Barron's over under 2.5 total touchdowns for Kyler.
I'm going to take the under on that. He just has not been a touchdown machine to this point in the season.
Well, if he's not going to get him against Tampa Bay, he's not going to get him, so I would go over.
Would you play Winston or Kyler?
I would play Winston because regardless of game flow, he's going to slang that thing, but both of them should go off today.
With a total of 51.5, play everybody. That's the moral of the story here. Let's go to Buffalo and Cleveland where you have limited options. Tank, do you buy into what Baker Mayfield and his sleuthing skills was selling earlier this week, saying, we're going to force feed OBJ early in this game against Tre'Davious White, one of the best cover corners in the league. If I set an over-under, and I know it's going to come a little bit later on, at 64.5 yards, give it a little sneak preview. What are you doing?
My sneak preview is... I mean, because honestly, what's the last play that Baker remembers? It's in Denver where you have to make a throw to win the game. You throw a ball that gets batted down, and when you see the replay, OBJ ran past one of their better corners. So you're like, yo, if I'm going to make a bet on my season, on my career, I got one of the top 5 receivers in the league, and I'm not giving him the ball. Yeah, he's going to get Trey, but yeah, he's going to force feed him. He has to.
Barons, real quick, give me a fearless forecast on Kareem Hunt in his first game back.
Yeah, that is really the fantasy topic in this one is what exactly the workload split looks like between Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Look at Chubb so far this season. He has 5 games in which he's actually played less than 70% of the snaps. So there's a huge snap share that Hunt can walk right into. So I think he probably finishes this one with like 10 touches.
Yeah, Dontrell Hilliard played on 39.1% of the snaps. That's going to be Hunt's workload there. I think it's 60 combined and a touchdown. And play Devin Singletary, for the love of God, everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere. Period. End of story.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Another break for us, but we're going to go over some players who could cause some fantasy damage. That's next. Stay with us. Welcome back to FFL. Here in Week 10, it's time to discuss some players who are under the radar that just might help you get over the hump and get you a win this week. So I'll turn it over to Liz so she can tell you who can cause some fantasy damage this week. Hey, Liz.
Hey, Amanda. So last week, I was not on Deontay Johnson. And, you know, he caught one ball for like 3 yards. Cool, cool, cool. This week, however, I am warming to him. Now, this is admittedly a Hail Mary play because the volume here is rather small. You also have a quarterback that refuses to push the ball downfield. But I do think that Deontay Johnson is going to see a lot of Troy Hill, and that is an exposable matchup. So if Mason Rudolph actually does push the ball downfield, which is probably only going to happen 4 times, there's a good chance that one of those receptions, probably 2 overall, will happen in the end zone. Again, this is a Hail Mary play, but there are 6 teams on bye. Y'all, I don't know if you heard this, but people like to use the term bye-geddon, which is just awful. Please don't use it on this show. We will move on to another higher upside dart throw. It's Darius Slayton. If you remember, I mentioned him 2 weeks ago in that outing against the Lions. He only caught 2 balls, but hey, both of them were in the end zone, so we'll take that. This week, the Giants are, of course, again missing Sterling Shepard and also Evan Ingram. It's worth noting that Slayton has been 4th in team targets behind Tate, Barkley, and Shepard. So with both with Tate behind Barkley, Tate, and Ingram, with Ingram out, we should see a higher volume here for Slayton. Also, he has the 3rd highest target distance among wide receivers at an average of 16.8 behind just Will Fuller and Terrell Williams. So we like that ability. I like the matchup too against Darryl Roberts, who's allowing 10.8 yards per reception and giving up close to 7 catches and 75 yards per game. Slayton, a nice high upside wide receiver option. Finally, at the tight end position, y'all, Mike Gesicki did something. What? All you stat heads were thrilled because the 97th percentile Spark athlete caught all of his passes last week, was 2nd in team targets to Devontae Parker for 95 yards. Preston Williams, the stud that almost was, is out for the rest of the year. Again, that means a boost in volume for Gesicki, and he has a solid matchup against the Indianapolis Colts that are continuously being picked on in the red area of the field by opposing tight ends. Great DFS value that I think my boy Tank will probably mention later in the show as well.
Thank you very much, Liz. Time now for the portion of the program where we let Brad tap into his inner gambling addict so he can dispense some advice so you can choose to follow or not, which is why we call this Fade the Noise.
Yes, that's right. And soon I'm going to be able to do it legally in the state of Colorado where I live. So children, I apologize for you having to pay for college. So let's get into it. With the over-under 6-6. Again, I'm losing money on the juice there. The spread, though, we finally got our head above water. Hopefully we can actually start profiting from some of these picks. Let's get to it here in week numero 10. Let's start with the Rams and the Steelers. The public, of course, all over Los Angeles after the bye week. The theme so far in the show is me fading the crap out of LA. I don't believe that they can run the ball effectively with Todd Gurley, Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, doesn't matter. I'm down on Jared Goff, who has been broken for the most part this season, working within this play action scheme. And the Steelers defense, they have stiffened across the board, especially having with Minka Fitzpatrick on board. And the numbers back it up. Yes, the Rams are 6-0 ATS in their last 6 contests, but the Steelers 4-1-1 ATS in their last 6. And again, the public, 71% of the spread tickets that the average Joe is wagering on is going to LA. Fade the majority. Take the Steelers and the points. Let's move on to the Sunday night affair between the Minnesota Vikings and Dallas Cowboys. And in this game, I actually really like the line. I think the Cowboys are going to win this game by a field goal. This game is going to be competitive, and I think it's going to be lower scoring than this number indicates. I am taking the under on 48. Why? Well, Minnesota has hit the under in 6 of its last 8 road games and 12 of its last 18 contests as well. Now, the public spread ticket action, nearly 50-50 on the total, but I think ultimately this game is going to be in the low 20s or high teens, just tucking under that 48 total. So again, I'm on the under. Shifting gears to Monday Night Football, Seattle, and our DJs is unblemished. San Francisco 49ers in this one. Now, earlier in the week, I was on San Francisco, full admission. Then George Kittle and the D got attached to his name and doubtful. That has changed my perspective entirely because the one area where Seattle is most vulnerable is that underbelly coverage where I thought Kittle would have a heyday. With Emmanuel Sanders, they could still do some damage in that regard, but I think Seattle's going to keep this close. This is a division game. It's a rivalry. It's been rekindled, and it's got monster consequences for the playoff picture as a whole and San Francisco's quest as well for home field advantage. But I think Seattle's going to keep this one close. Unfortunately, I'm siding with the public here. 61% of the public spread tickets on the Seahawks, but they have covered in 13 of their last 16 contests against San Francisco, and they're going to add to that total. So give me the Seahawks and the points there. And then finally, let's get a player prop in here and sticking with the same game. Will Emmanuel Sanders have 58.5 receiving yards? That's it. With Kittle likely out, even if Kittle were to miraculously recover and be in uniform, I'm hammering living daylights out of the yes and the over here at -114. Look, him and Jimmy G have got this bubbling and brewing bromance on the field. Sanders, a guy that's played 88.4% of the snaps the last couple of weeks. I mentioned Seattle being soft in coverage. 9 guys have hit 59 or more yards against this Seahawks secondary. I think Sanders makes it double digits. Play him everywhere in fantasy. Hammer the over here. Make some moolah! Don't fade the noise. You better follow me because I'm going undefeated in Week 10. Back to you.
Ooh, okay.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay, nice.
All right, we're going to hit the phone lines now for some questions. Now, remember, the number to call is 877-FFL-GURU. Thank you so much for your patience on the phone line. First up, we have Lance from Tampa. Good morning, Lance. What's your question?
Hi, good morning. So I have a question in a full PPR. I need to choose 2. It'll be Watkins or Ronald Jones or Joe Mixon.
Oh, was the third one?
Joe Mixon.
Yeah, as soon as I heard Joe Mixon, I
But
this,
he needs
this
to.
became clear.
It's going to be universal. Ronald Jones is one.
Yes.
So it comes down to Sammy Watkins and Joe Mixon, who have both been ensnared in the same suck trap for the last, several weeks. What do you guys do?
You hate to get stuck in a suck trap.
A suck trap.
A world of suck like Manny Sanders was before he got traded.
Yeah, and then, you get out of football purgatory, which is different.
So is that the same as going back to Patrick Mahomes being that quarterback?
Oh, I see what you did there. I see what you did there. I would go with Watkins.
Yeah, I would go with Watkins as well. I mean, we know he's not the number 1 or the number 2 option necessarily for the Chiefs, but it's the Chiefs. You're tied to Patrick Mahomes. I don't want to mess around with Joe Mixon at all this week. I can easily see this as like a 15 rushing yards, 20 receiving kind of game.
You don't believe in the power of Ryan Finley?
Oh my goodness, I do not.
Very sad. All right, up next we have Jesse in Minnesota. Hello, Jesse. How are you? What's your question?
Good, thanks, guys. Happy Bloody Sunday with all these injuries. So my boy George Kittle is out. I got to pick up a guy.
Quick correction, he's my boy. He's mine. O.J. Howard,
Irv Smith with Thielen out. I don't know, maybe, or Russ Dwelly, tight end, the replacement for George Kittle. Thanks, guys.
So the one name I'll throw out there as a common pivot for George Kittle owners is Jacob Hollister.
Yep.
Who's also going in that Monday night game. You can hold out a little bit of hope for Kittle here and then go to Hollister, who seeing a ton of targets, playing a ton of snaps, a couple of touchdowns last week from Russell Wilson. He's also a guy tied to Russell Wilson, which is a situation I like to be in.
I believe in the talent of O.J. Howard. At some point, that's got to get tapped into.
That's a hell of a matchup too.
It's an unbelievable matchup.
I mean, if you're gonna throw that dart, I mean, this is the day to throw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is just kind of a universal, axiom to follow. When you throw a dart, you want that dart to be attached to a total that's in the 50s. So, because the chances of everybody scoring are far more significant than in a game like Seattle and San Francisco with a total that's in the mid-40s.
I feel like we're guaranteeing a 2-touchdown game for Cameron Brate.
Or whatever the third string guy is. Yeah, you're right.
All right, thank you very much for calling into the show. We do have to take another break, but we're talking daily fantasy coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. It is time now to highlight a couple players who are under 25% owned in fantasy leagues, but they could give you a boost. So we call them fantasy freebies, and we'll see who Liz and Matt like this week. Hello, guys.
Hey, I guess I'm starting. So let's kick it off with Zach Pascal, who we already talked about. But y'all, he is a thing. He has been on the field for nearly 100% of the team snaps in back-to-back weeks. He's also put up fantasy relevant numbers in 4 of his last 6 games, and he's produced 2 top 12 fantasy finishes over the last 3 weeks. This ODU product is surging and figures to have a bigger role in this offense with both T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell out, and you gotta love the matchup against the dumpster fire formerly known as the Miami Dolphins.
I love it. That's a great pick. I'm going to go with a wide receiver myself, Deebo Samuel from my San Francisco 49ers. We know we're not going to get George Kittle in this matchup, most likely. That should open up some middle-of-the-field targets. And the Seahawks have allowed the 4th most catches to slot receivers this year. Samuel, everyone's kind of taken turns in the slot so far for the 49ers, but even over the last 2 weeks with Emmanuel Sanders back there, Deebo Samuel has the most slot targets, and he's seen 37.5% of his snaps inside. Like I said, everyone kind of rotates that position for San Francisco. I think this game could be pretty fun for fantasy. I think it could push into maybe not quite a shootout, but enough action for Samuel to be a nice flex play here if you are indeed desperate.
Let's get to our second over-under. The Arizona Cardinals are in Tampa to face the Bucs, and they get David Johnson back today. However, their newest backfield addition, Kenyon Drake, made quite a statement in his debut last week. So against a Bucs defense that's allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points to RBs this season, the question is, will Drake see the rock enough to go over or under 13.5 touches? Andy, you're up first.
Yeah, you actually hit the most important piece of this. The first thing we need to remind people of is that Tampa Bay is a difficult matchup, right? So the 3rd fewest fantasy points allowed, number 1 against the run so far this season. It was a magical week for Kenyon Drake. He was a really exciting ad, but David Johnson is back. He averaged 18 touches per week over his first 6. He is going to dominate the snaps. It's happened all season. They took him off the injury list entirely, so I don't really see this as much of a job share. I think it's probably 2/3 for Johnson, 1/3 for Drake. I am going to go under.
Brad?
I'm actually going to take the over here. Look, we finally saw the 2017, at least the late season version of Kenyon Drake last week. You know, the 19 touches, 162 yards and a touchdown, really set the tone with a 36-yard scamper off left tackle. And I think this is going to be a little bit closer to a 50-50 tandem than people are avoiding right now, or at least considering. I know that David Johnson is off the injury report, and all expectations he's going to be full go, but I think they want to preserve him. They want to keep him healthy rest of season. You have an explosive running back. You also have a very creative coach in Cliff Kingsbury who could use both of these players simultaneously in multiple packages. So I think it could be a 14, 15 touch gain for Drake working along the peripherals in this one. That's why I still have him ranked as an RB2, especially in this bye-heavy week.
Liz?
So much for that Zach Zenner tilt. Where was all that chatter? Listen, yeah, Drake had a great week last week. 19 touches, over 100 yards against a defense that has recently been exposed. But as Andy mentioned, the matchup here is really tough against Tampa Bay. We know the way to beat them is to put the ball in the air, and Cliff is creative enough to figure out ways to do that, despite the fact that he's been using all of these interesting rushing schemes. DJ is the guy. He is healthy. And fun fact, Chase Edmonds, playing number 2 to David Johnson, never touched the ball more than 13 times, which is obviously under this line, while DJ was healthy. So I am also going to agree with Andy and say under.
Alrighty, well, we're done talking running backs for now. It's time to highlight wideouts. Matt Harmon has a wide receiver he likes and doesn't like each week, so we ask him to expound on one from each category. Matt, take it away.
Yeah, I'm going with the guy I like this week, Ravens wide receiver Marquise Brown, who's back healthy in the lineup. And look, I think this guy is such a huge difference maker. The horde of delusional haters who want to talk about Lamar Jackson, he's not a real passer, even though we see every single week that that's not true. what Jackson did in the lineup without Marquise Brown for about 2.5 games against the Steelers, Bengals, and Seahawks, he threw for just 530 yards, a 69 pass rating. Again, I don't think that's a coincidence because Marquise Brown is a difference maker, not only when he gets targeted, but also just he's one of those true actual field tilting coverage players, and I see this as a great matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Yes, they can be run on. However, they also give up a 103 passer rating on throws of 15+ air yards, and we know that Brown is that deep guy. I think you're going to probably feel pretty gross if you don't play him here in Week 10 in this divisional matchup. Now, the player I don't like as much, that's same thing in the AFC North, Juju Smith-Schuster. I think this is a pretty troubling setup for him. He has not been targeted double-digit times in any game yet this season. That is a feat he accomplished 10 out of 16 games last year. The complexion of this Steelers offense has changed. They're not funneling targets to him the way they have in the past. Obviously, we know the quarterback position is a huge downgrade, and that's the most problematic part of this situation here to me. The Rams, what they can do well on defense is they can get after the passer. So even regardless of, if Juju lines up in the slot and Jalen Ramsey doesn't trail to him there, I think this is a really bad matchup for Mason Rudolph, who has just 4 yards per attempt when he's under pressure this year. That is 29th out of 33 qualifying quarterbacks. I am not trusting that guy against that defense to get the ball to Juju Smith-Schuster. I am not really interested in playing him here in Week 10.
Thank you very much, Matt. It's time now to let our favorite Williams cousin have the floor.
Hey.
It's time for him to give us his daily fantasy advice. Now, hopefully, he decides to take his own advice. Tank?
Yeah, probably not.
Once.
For once.
But what it do, baby? We got Kyler Murray coming in with our quarterback this week. He's going against the Tampa Bay pass defense that gives up the 4th most points to fantasy quarterbacks. And one thing we know is that Bruce Arians and Jameis Winston are going to sling the ball on the other side. And so if they're going to keep up, Kyler Murray's going to have to do the same. And so I expect him to have a big game today. And I think it's one of those things where I looked at that game where the Cardinals played the Giants a few weeks ago, and we were just begging for a shootout, but it didn't materialize. This one is definitely going to shoot out, so make sure you get Kyler in your lineup. At running back, we have Devin Singletary, finally getting all the volume, going against the Browns. They're road favorites. All the people that have gone off against the Browns, whether it's Chris Carson, Matt Breida, I mean, all these guys may be able to go binkies, go ham on the Browns, and I really like him at $19 and getting all that volume. But as we learned, Matt Stafford's going to be out. They're playing against the Bears. David Montgomery, he's going to be $20 in a game where we expect them to try to run the ball, try to keep Mitch out of trouble. Both of these guys are cheap, really good plays in daily today. Now, at wide receiver, Christian Kirk, obviously I'm going to pair my man Kyler with this wide receiver. Only $16, averaged 7 targets over the past 3 weeks. And we know people get busy against Tampa Bay in the slot, whether we're looking at Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, or Cooper Kupp, pick your poison, against that game a few weeks ago. And so a lot of volume, $16, can't go wrong. Should get some positive touchdown regression coming up this week. He needs to get in the zone. I think Kyler gets him there. At tight end, my girl Liz already spoken into existence. Mike Gesicki, he went off last week. My cousin is banged up, and nobody knows a tight end like Liz Lowe's. And he's super cheap. He's $11, so get that dude in your lineup. And last but not least, the Baltimore Ravens defense, $13. Mr. Bradley Evans. Who's the quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals?
Sadly, a player I have in multiple super flexes, that is one Ryan Finley.
And you know if the Ginger Fist was starting above him,
it wouldn't matter.
It has to be bad this week with Finley starting. So get them Ravens in y'all lineup this week. Come on now.
All right, we're going to check in on our Guru Challenge standings now. Liz Loza was the big winner from Week 9, so she jumps into second place overall. And sorry, Andy, but she decreases your overall lead.
Getting tighter, a little tighter.
It is. Brad rounds at the top 3, followed by Tank, Matt, and then lonely old me.
Who at the bottom?
Yeah.
Oh,
Tank, I need to start
gorgeous.
taking your advice. I'm not doing so well.
Harmon Borges dogfight, though.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
Be fun to follow.
Matt, this will be fun. We'll fight it out. No, Matt has nothing to say on this.
I think I'm gonna do my equivalent of benching Andy Dalton, play my Ryan Finley here. Start looking towards evaluating talent for next year. I think 2020, really, that's our season.
Are you just tanking? Are you tanking?
I think
now?
I'm gonna tank.
Organic tanking here. I'm trying to be. This is basically since I've joined the Yahoo family. I've been trying to impress and beat Andy Behrens, and it is never going to happen. We're playing each other in this ridiculous Huevos League, and Andy, by the way, you're set to slaughter me by 40 points.
Hey, we still have some time. We have some time.
My signature move is to fade in this contest at the end of the season. So we're hitting the point in the year where I traditionally give up the lead.
All right, the struggling Atlanta Falcons are in New Orleans to face off in a battle with the Kings of the NFC South. Now, Atlanta is 1-7, while the Saints sit at 7-1. So while this may not be much of a challenge for the team on top, what should we be paying attention to here? We'll put 90 seconds on the clock for Matt and Liz. Guys, there are a lot of banged up players on both sides, so who are you paying attention to today?
Well, I want to start talking about the Saints, and I think Cam Jordan set the tone because he tweeted earlier in last week, you know, you talk about when you have the Falcons circled on the calendar for the year, it's the most important game because it's the next game, except it's not because it's Atlanta. Cheers to Cam for throwing that kind of shade. Let's talk about the backfield, Matt, because Kamara is now healthy and back. They're coming off a bye, but while Kamara was out, Latavius Murray touched the ball somewhere near 30 dang times a week, putting up massive fantasy numbers in 2 of those contests. So has Murray earned a larger role in anticipation of maybe keeping Kamara healthy and fresh down the stretch?
I think that's the biggest question. And I mean, going into the year, it was obvious. They were just going to run all through Kamara. And I think that we're going to see that again. That's my lean, is that I think maybe we see a little bit more of Murray, but I think it's just going to lean much more heavily to Kamara. Maybe that is just my wish casting, but I think that's really the way I feel like this is going to go, and especially against a matchup in Atlanta, you're going to love it.
Prior to his injury, Kamara was touching the ball about 20 times per game. And
everything that you'd want out of like a top 5 fantasy pick.
Yeah, it's almost like they're doing the reverse of what the Carolina Panthers are doing with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, maybe the Carolina Panthers will learn their lesson. That remains to be seen. But
well, if we know there's one team that's really smart about their injuries. Obviously, the Carolina Panthers.
Can we give a quick shout out to Ted Ginn, who will be back, because last time he faced the Falcons with Breeze under center, he drew 6 looks and found the end zone, and we know that the Atlanta secondary is obviously very vulnerable.
Ted Ginn shout out here in the year 2019.
$15 in DFS.
Thank you very much, guys. We have to take another break, but we've got plenty more for you on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. It's a shame you can only see me and not everyone else dancing around me. Sorry about that. Let's get to some questions. questions. We'll have Liz and Matt check the chat and see what you guys need help with. Hey, guys.
Yeah, chat room, hit us with your good emojis and your best questions. But before we do jump into the chat room, we have to address this tweet from David Glenn, who asks us, and this is a question many people are probably asking. They're a George Kittle owner, and they want to know, do you pick up, one of your favorite players in the league, Liz, Jonnu Smith, and they're also playing A.J. Brown, by the way, so you really want to get invested in this Titans offense, or wait for Monday night, guys. And I will say personally, in the league that I have George Kittle, I picked up Jacob Hollister early in the week, just in case Kittle ends up going. I can still play him, and I don't have to deal with some Jonnu Smith type of situation. And then, I guess I'll just roll the dice with Hollister.
So again, I get the argument for the Titans because they are seeing the Chiefs, high-scoring matchup, no Corey Davis, so the target volume, but you still have to deal with Ryan Tannehill, and that's no bueno. I'd rather have Russell Wilson throwing me the ball, and Hollister has found the end zone. So I am with Matt. You are hedging your bets, and if Kittle does play, you get to start him. Go ahead and use Hollister if you can't.
Now, here's a beautifully fun question. We are jumping into the chat room right now from Sean from Facebook. A lot of poop emojis here, and the hashtag AskFFL. What a pro, Sean.
Nice, Sean.
Need a win to stay in the playoff hunt. And this is ugly. It's a Yahoo Standard League, so half-point PPR. Do they want to know, do you play Juju Smith-Schuster against Jalen Ramsey in the Rams defense, or Kenny Golladay without Matt Stafford? I got to be honest.
Darius Slayton, baby.
Really, you're just going to go ahead to the waiver wire and pick up this guy?
Or Zach Pascal. Of these two, I would probably start Kenny Golladay because I think he has the better catch radius. He can win those contested balls. So I like the athlete that is Kenny Golladay, especially in the red area of the field, more than Juju attached, of course, as Matt outlined, to Mason Rudolph. But I wouldn't mind if this is must win and you want a ceiling play. I do have big feels about Slayton this week.
Yeah, I think these are both floor plays, especially Smith-Schuster, even though, as I mentioned, he's not seeing the targets. I think he probably could give you maybe, let's say, 6 catches for 40 yards. Sick. If you need that, that's the way you go with that floor play there. Let's keep it moving. This one comes from Twitter. G3 Cap. Cool, whatever. A lot of mind-blown emojis here. I like this question. It's a PPR. Mark Ingram, Marlon Mack, or Aaron Jones. They can only play one. Which of those 3 are you prioritizing in this one?
Aaron Jones. I think I'm going to start Aaron Jones. I like his usage in the passing game a lot, and the matchup is solid. After him, I would start Marlon Mack, I think, as my second because the volume with Brissett out figures to be great. And then obviously Mark Ingram sounds great against Cincinnati, but you've got Gus Edwards in the mix. You've got Lamar Jackson in the mix. You've got Justice Hill getting some runs. So I think volume-wise, it's Marlon Mack and Aaron Jones because Aaron Jones is just lit.
Aaron Jones is just lit.
He's like a top 7 play this week, don't you agree?
I agree with you. I do. But I think I would go in the same order, honestly. This is the week to use Marlon Mack in daily fantasy. It's the week to use Marlon Mack because they're going to be in that positive game script. But I just think I trust the higher scoring game with the Packers and Panthers. Now, last one we will take from the chat, and this one is addressed specifically to you, Liz. And I think we know why.
I love how you do this to me, Matt, every week. I don't see these, by the way.
The couple of heart, we got a heart eyes emojis, and then they go lots of poops and hearts and all this, and the prayer and the football. But the important part is, Liz, Frank from Facebook needs to know, do you start your boy Chris Herndon or Gerald Everett from your LA Rams?
All right. I love Chris Herndon, but he has been a tease with a capital T. Gerald Everett has produced. There's no Brandon Cooks here, and I'm not messing with Josh Reynolds. I like the kid. I've met him, but I'm not messing with him in fantasy. I'd rather have Gerald Everett. There's your answer. And yes, namaste, heart emojis and poop to you too.
Whenever you have a chance to play the number 2 tight end on the New York Jets, you definitely don't ever do it. I agree. Play Gerald Everett.
My analysis was way better than that.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's been a pretty rough season for the Browns after all the hype this summer. Their big addition, Odell Beckham Jr., is on pace for his lowest average yards per game of his career, which currently sits at just under 72 yards per game. Now, facing a tough Buffalo squad today, can OBJ get close to that average and go over 64.5 yards today? Andy, we'll start with you.
It's crazy that he's only done this 4 times so far this season, especially given where preseason expectations were for OBJ and the obvious talent here. He's going to see a lot of Tre'Davious White today. That's no bueno because White on the season allowing an opponent's passer rating of just 42.3 And yet, we've heard that Baker Mayfield is going to force feed him, and I totally buy that because that is the sort of thing that bad quarterbacks do. I think you're going to see OBJ targeted, 12, 13 times today, and he's going to put up an ugly 75 yards or so. So I think he goes over this number without necessarily having a great fantasy day.
Tank?
Yeah, I'm going over. I think it's one of those games where a lot of things don't make sense. Like Adrian Peterson, like Frederick Douglass, he was able to run all over the Bills last week. And so I think Nick Chubb can probably do the same thing, which means that they may have to focus a little bit more on Chubb and maybe some Kareem Hunt, which will open up some stuff for OBJ. So even though it doesn't make sense, he really hasn't gone over this number a lot. I feel like if you play OBJ this week, it'll be like wearing some goat fur underwear. You'll just feel good after the game. You may not feel good before the game, but after the game. So
who says I'm not?
And Matt?
Yeah, let's make it a sweep of 3 clowns. I don't know what to tell you. Look, I don't have any great analysis to this, but it's Odell Beckham, man. Like, eventually, we're going to get that big game, right? And, yeah, sometimes an elite wide receiver, if they actually get some help from their quarterback, can beat an elite cornerback in a tough matchup here. So I think we see Beckham go over this number, mainly only because I have a few prayer candles lit that it might finally actually happen.
how do we sweep on this? Oh, we're in trouble.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Now, here's what we know. We know that our producer really cares about tonight's Vikings-Cowboys game. Now, we also know he's already come to grips with the inevitable outcome. But what in this contest tonight don't Matt and Liz care about? The floor is yours on this one, guys.
Look, one thing that I have been just annoyed with all season, and it's something that I hope to flesh out at some point in an article that I'll then reference 45 times. I really am just over this over-analysis of these two quarterbacks in particular. Like, they're both pretty good players, right? Like, statistically, these are two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and I'm sick of the kind of state of the union we've got to read about, well, is Kirk Cousins actually good after each week? We know who Kirk Cousins is. He's really streaky. Dak Prescott, kind of the same way. I think he's a little bit more consistent, and we still have some potential yet to fill with him. I don't think necessarily I just don't care about having to decide who these guys are after each and every matchup. But I'm really excited to see them face off in this game. I think it could be a pretty fun matchup.
I mean, I'm going to say that I don't care about this passing game, which is obviously attached to the quarterback, because these are two teams that want to #establish the run, and you have two elite running backs in both of these teams. Adam Thielen is also, I'm sorry, the Kirk Cousins anti-truthers are going to come out, because DeMarcus Lawrence looks back from that shoulder injury. He's had sacks in back-to-back games. He looked incredible in Week 9. Yeah, it was versus the Giants, but come on, he still looked really good. And I think that Kirk Cousins is going to get trucked in this one, especially when he doesn't have Adam Thielen, who's been his security blanket. This, to me, is all about Zeke and Cook, and then I will give the advantage to Dak and the Cowboys, and also Cooper, who might be a little banged up, and also Michael Gallup in this one, because the secondary in Minnesota has not been up to snuff.
This whole defense really in Minnesota hasn't been great while Dallas is ascending.
Yep.
So if I had to over under, choose between the two, who's getting more rushing yards here, Cook or Elliott?
Woo, I'm going to give it to Elliott because he has been slower to start the season, but he was coming off of that holdout. And so I do think that Elliott is just going to get more opportunities because his receivers are going to stretch the field a bit more.
So,
what do you?
I would agree with you. I think it's Elliott here. Again, I trust the Dallas defense more, especially at home, more than the Minnesota defense. So.
Vikings also very different team on the road, as is Kirk Cousins while traveling.
So essentially, I don't care about the quarterback state of the union that we have to hear about these two every week.
But we just had one.
It's gonna happen. As Liz lets me know, hope is poison. So there we go.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
That's a Debbie Downer.
Always a hope.
On this show. So we're going to lift things back up. We've reached the part of the show where Andy and Tank are doing their very best to assist some friends with their lineups as they make their pick. Guys, take it away.
Yeah, it's not so bleak over here.
No.
We're here to fill you with hope. First question from Melinda Cumberledge. That's an amazing name. My favorite Hogwarts professor. These guys are all great options. She needs two flexes, one wide receiver. Why don't we start with the wide receivers over here? I like them both. I've got them both top 20. You leaning Sanders or you leaning John Brown?
Personally, I like Manny Sanders. I think this could be a shootout on Monday night, and with no Kittle, he's gonna get all the ball.
Let me use the catch radius.
Ooh, go Gadget.
Yeah, I gotta go Emmanuel Sanders too, especially no Kittle. Looks great. This basically looks like your DFS lineup in this one, right? I love Montgomery this week. I hopefully we can agree on Montgomery in this one. I hear he's mandatory. Then it's Singletary or Coleman.
Well, we know he's going to get all the volume. He typically gets it, but then you never know if it's going to be Breida. You never know if it's going to be Jeff Wilson stealing, some touches in the red zone. So I think I may have to go for really Singletary over Coleman?
Yeah, I feel good about it, though. I feel good about 20, maybe 25 touches in this one against a Cleveland defense that has been super generous, number 30 against the run so far on the season. Next question from Secrets Agent. They need one quarterback.
Agent man.
That was good. That was really good. At quarterback, again, I'm not on Dak this week, not at all. Wilson has a brutal matchup, of
Look at that hair. Can you go against that?
I could never go against that.
So delicious.
You should think about that, Brad, next toupee.
I'll work on that.
We're looking at DJ Moore and Marvin Jones again. No Stafford this week for me. It is DJ Moore for sure.
Yeah, that's easy money.
37 targets over the last 4 games.
Yeah.
Last one we're going to take from Clint. He needs 2 flexes. Kenyon Drake, that's a hard no for me. Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Allen Robinson.
I think this is pretty easy. Go ahead and touch yours. That's closer to you.
All right. I'm going to go Kirk. I love Kirk in that matchup. Obviously, Tampa Bay gives up close to 300 passing yards per week.
Oh, are you really going to trust Mitch?
No, actually, I'm not going to trust Mitch. I'm going to go Calvin Ridley.
That's why I said it's easy. You're making it seem like it wasn't.
Yeah, I think Ridley blows up in this one. I think a high-scoring game all around, and not going to see much Lattimore.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Nice work, everyone. One more break for us. Plenty more roster questions next. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. Yes, Tank, we are back. Sit up straight. It is time now to move into our final quick slant of the day, a battle of the NFC North bottom dwellers. Now, the Lions are visiting the Bears, and we're going to focus on this from a fantasy perspective. I know there are some personal feelings here that could impact your opinions. Also, there was some big news this morning that impacts this game.
Rather large.
Matt Stafford officially needs a bacchiotomy.
Yeah, broken bones in the back. You wonder if this could be like a multi-week injury for him, but I mean, we belabor the whole Marvin
Well, they already
Jones.
said that he may miss the Dallas game.
Oh, well, that doesn't surprise me at all.
You would assume that broken back would be a multi-week injury, right?
What about TJ Hawkinson? I mean, so you got a new arm quarterback under center. We saw what Jeff Driscoll did with Cincinnati last year. It was a whole lot of 100-yard games. That was about it, right?
Yeah.
Short arm quarterback. Hawkinson can take advantage against the Bears because they've been vulnerable across the middle of the field.
Yeah, I think the two players on the Detroit side who could possibly benefit from what we think Driscoll's tendencies are going to be J.D. McKissick and T.J. Hawkinson. We could see some short-range stuff that doesn't result in touchdowns but could otherwise be a decent PPR day. Again, I don't think either player is going to go off. I don't want to be tied to Detroit's offense in this one. Obviously, the Bears are good defense. But if there's any two that are going to go off, it's probably going to be Hawk.
So do you have to have like a 2B with Amendola too?
Yeah, Amendola could do a thing, I guess. But again, it's going to be one of those boring PPR days that's like 5 catches, 55 yards.
Tank, true or false, Taylor Gabriel has at least 55 yards today against the Lions.
Honestly, dog, like, I think Mitchell is like so like shell-shocked that I'm only focused on David Montgomery. Honestly, like, Allen Robinson could do some stuff, like Miller could do something, Gabriel could do something, like, I'm not even looking there. It's like David Montgomery, let's get a win, let's try to get back on track, hopefully get Mitch some confidence, and then maybe we can make a push for the playoffs, but like, I'm not expecting anything too crazy.
Well, you and Matt Nagy are kind of in the same boat on Mitch then, because he's clearly coaching around.
All I'm saying, if you need to throw a Hail Mary, Taylor Gabriel is a decent option. It could be 60 yards and a touchdown.
I learned trying to play Mitch against Philadelphia.
Yeah, you did!
Yeah, anytime you get...
you swallowed that big old fat bitter pill, didn't you?
You won't get me again.
I told you.
Anytime you can start Mitch's number 4 receiver, you got to do it, right?
Seen a lot of targets lately.
All right, let's check on our social chat one last time before we close out the show. Matt and Liz, what's going on over there?
Yeah, we're hitting our chat room for the last time, like you said, and I think this is a great one to start off with here. John from Facebook wants to know, and we've got, just so everyone knows, some American flags, some footballs, and some poop. What a combo. Needs one for the flex. Jamal Williams or DK Metcalf. I think this is like a pretty solid decision here to make between these two. How do you bench DK Metcalf coming off that great week last week?
Well, it depends how involved Josh Gordon is going to be.
Do you see him being that involved in his first game with his team?
I mean, according to PD Sunshine, everybody is involved. And don't worry, Chris Harris, that's your copyright. I think the floor play here is Jamal Williams.
I think he's the safer option, but I'm going to go with DK Metcalf in this one. I love the way he's playing lately. I think that San Francisco secondary, as long as you get some of the right matchups, he can be had. I think you should avoid Richard Sherman if he lines up a lot on the left side of the field, does DK Metcalf. So I think that's the way I am going to go there. Now, this one's a pretty good one. I know you're not as high on Golden Tate, but we want to know here, Tyler Boyd or Golden Tate? Liz, I'm going to go with
Golden Tate. I'm not messing with Tyler Boyd. Next. Also, the entire, all of the DBs are back to being healthy. At least the cornerbacks are being back to being healthy in Baltimore. And we saw what they did against the Patriots last week. No. You're going with Golden Tate.
Perfect. I'm glad you could help us out on this one.
You're
now,
welcome.
Last one here, Brian Martinez from Facebook wants to know. Okay, they're a George Kittle owner. They've got a lot of replacement options here, but Hollister's there. But do you just play Jared Cook over Hollister?
No, I'm not going to do it. I got bit once. I'm not going to do it again. You've got Murray, you've got Latavius Murray, and you've got Alvin Kamara. I like Ted Ginn in this one. Traquan Smith is back. There are just too many targets, and Cook isn't getting the volume, so I am fading him. I'd rather have Hollister. Do you, in case Kittle, as a Kittle owner, is actually active? Do you disagree? You're going to start Jared Cook first?
I am going to start Jared Cook here because, look, he's been getting more involved with the offense. I know it was under Teddy Bridgewater, and then he got hurt, but we started to see him sort of come on. I think he's just a little more comfortable now that he's been with the team for a little while. So I think Cook is like a top 10 play this week at tight end, and Hollister it's a nice option, theoretically, but it's as thin as you get from a target perspective. So I am going to go in this situation because you do have a little bit more of a reliable presence there with Jared Cook.
All right, guys.
And of course, as we're about to go, we should let you know that we will be here every week, every halftime, early game, late game. Every week we're doing it. Liz, it will be really fun. We'll be chopping it up, answering all your questions, whatever you need to know.
Whenever
Liz is done penning her memoir over there.
I got stuff to do.
All right, we're going to hit our phone lines one last time for some questions. First up, we have Randy in Ohio. Good morning. What's your question?
Hey, I think this going to be the pest at a good garbage time point. So I've got a flex question. I got Boyd, Freeman, and A.J. Brown. I got to start 2.
Boyd, Freeman and A.J. Brown.
That's right.
You know who? A.J. Brown's actually the top of the list for me.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I would go to Devontae Freeman just in the hopes that, look, again, this is where Vegas and Jersey can be helpful for setting fantasy lineups. I mean, the Falcons are 14-point underdogs. 14-point underdogs. That's legit. The script should go negative in this game, and Freeman should rack up some late yards as a dump-off receiver.
Yeah, they've been throwing to him this year, which has really saved his fantasy value because he hasn't been the most efficient runner. But I fully expect him to catch 5-6 balls in this one.
I mean, obviously that's the better option than going against a Cincinnati wide receiver when who's starting at quarterback?
Ryan Finley.
Right.
Pray for me.
Yeah.
Up next, we have Brian in Chicago. Good morning, Brian. How can we help?
Good morning, everyone. Got to pivot a little bit here. So I'm starting Kenny Galladay and Devontae Freeman, but do I replace them with Larry Fitzgerald and Latavius Murray, given the matchup?
I actually like Latavius ahead of Devontae Freeman. I think Latavius is going to get 13, 14 touches in this one. I think he could fall forward for another touchdown. Now, is this the week that Larry Fitzgerald, though, shows up? I mean, he's had premium matchups before and has not done jack squat with them, but I would take my chances in a game with so much shootout appeal.
Yeah.
Those are my top two choices.
I agree. I'm definitely going Fitzgerald over Galladay. I'm petrified of Galladay in basically every aspect of the Detroit offense this week.
Yeah, definitely Fitz over Galladay. And so then the other one was Freeman or
Oh, I'll just say
Latavius?
I'm not down with Murray over Freeman. I'm still going Freeman there. I think he's got a good shot.
I guess you just got to go with the volume, I guess.
Yeah, but what do you always preach, dog? You're always like, who's got the most touchdown upside? It's not Devontae Freeman. It's definitely Latavius.
True.
I'm pulling in.
I don't feel good about either of those, man. I know I'm no help. I'll probably go with the volume, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going volume as well.
All right, good morning to our friend Dave in Wisconsin. How can we help you this morning?
Well, you've answered part of my question already. You've convinced me to start Devin Singletary. But in a half-point PPR league, I need one of these two, Tevin Coleman or Jalen Samuels.
Oh, we haven't had a whole lot of Jalen Samuels questions, and I've just been littered with questions on Twitter about him. I'm all over Jalen Samuels this week. All over him. Top 15 player, probably going to catch 7-8 balls at a minimum in this game against the Rams. You can run on the Rams as well. The Steelers collectively playing pretty well in the trenches, which should really open up some nice holes for him to try.
I agree. He's coming off a game with double-digit receptions. This is going to be the Jalen Samuels show. I agree. I'm starting him.
Tank sweep?
Yeah, I guess we can make it a sweep.
Man, you were just like over here, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking because running backs have had success against Seattle. I mean, you look at what Nick Chubb was able to do, and Tevin Coleman has just been smashing. The Niners have one of the best run games in the league. So how are you going to bench Tevin Coleman in that run offense for Samuels in Pittsburgh?
I think there's higher volume, and the fact that he's being...
suddenly you like volume.
It may end up being a negative game script, too.
I do.
It could be a negative game script, too.
All right.
So I'm going Coleman.
All right. Like it. Thank you very much, guys. We are out of time. That will do it for us today. For everyone here on our Sunnyvale set and also Liz and Matt in LA, thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week. Remember, we are here every Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, right here on Yahoo Sports. We'll see you next week.
And don't forget about DJ Bop, 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 Bop,
Okay.
Bop, Bop, yeah, yeah.
You didn't know you get a Hanson reference, man.